4 years ago, when I was 12, I got my belay ticket, which was when I started climbing. And that's when you're 12, that's when you get your belay ticket, at least at the gym that I was climbing at, or started climbing at, which is Romperoom. My friend got me into climbing, so I climbed with him most of the time. I really enjoy climbing, and that's why I'm making a thing for it. But basically, I've been climbing for a long time, for about 4 years, ever since. It's a really great workout. It takes a lot of strength to climb all the time, and sometimes I climb a couple times a week and my hands are like really sore, so it's really good for your fitness. So a tread wall is a rotating climbing wall, so you can basically climb on it forever and it will just keep rotating around. So I first came into contact with a tread wall when I was climbing in a gym in Squamish, and I tried it there, which was the first time I had tried one, and I really enjoyed it. It was a super awesome workout because you could just climb forever and just build up that endurance. It would be really awesome. Unfortunately, the gym that I climb at does not have a tread wall, and if you look up the price, they're between $8,000 and $12,000, so pretty expensive. So I started thinking about how I could build my own. Alright, so when we first thought about different ways to build the tread wall, me and my dad were just kind of mulling things over, writing things on paper, just kind of just thinking what would come to hand. We had a few ideas, and we decided that wood would be the best material to use because it's cheap, relatively cheap, and we could just use like scraps of lumber and stuff like that, and it's easy to manipulate. You can cut it with just some base materials compared to like metal, which takes, I don't know, it takes way more work and cost to use, although it would be stronger, but we decided that wood would be strong enough. Anyway, so we decided to just kind of keep thinking, brainstorming, just kind of going through ideas. We had a few ideas and kind of narrowed them down to this one idea that had to do with gears and links. So our idea is to have a couple gears and then links that will have the plywood connected to them, which is going to allow us to actually attach holes. So that's what we pursue, and we're going to try to perfect it. We started the design of the link on a computer using a program called AutoCAD, and we basically designed this. This is the router jig, and basically how it works is what you do is you place the router inside and run it around, and the edge of the router kind of runs along this outer kind of thing. And since the actual bit would be moving in this square, what we do is we place a piece of 2x4 in here, and as we run it around, using these pieces just as extra like edges, because you can't do it all at once, but as you can see here, you would run it all the way around and replace it there, and that would make the one side, and then the other side, you take this off just to clean a bit there, flip it over and do the same thing. And the gear happens similarly, but over here, this is basically what the links look like, and this is what the gears look like, and this is what it looks like connected together. So that was what we were trying to make when we made the jigs. And this gear jig works similar. You put a round piece of wood, which is underneath here. You secure it with pins and basically run it up and down like so, and it does that. And you take this out to do that little section, and you just rotate it 8 times and do that, and this is a half thick gear, so you have to make 2 of these to connect them together to make a double thick layer. Anyway, that is how we basically, our plan was to make it. And as you can see, we have many layers. So what we did, we started by making this, which is basically has all the holes for both jigs on it. We started by doing this, which is just the template for all the holes. And what we did was we took a bolt and we drilled a hole, this size of hole, straight through the center, so that we could basically place it on top and drill so that the holes that would be through the plywood are very straight, so that it keeps everything consistent. And we would use these to drill them so that they're always in the same spot. That's what this is. And basically, that's how we created these, we printed the different sections of our designs, like the different layers, and then we took the print, we like took the paper, cut out the areas, and then just jigsawed the holes, because we already have the paper plate over top. So that's how we made these accurate to thing, although not so accurate considering the first attempt at these. For some reason, we were printing them on 11 by 17 format, which means that our printer at home cannot actually print that, so we had to go out to a store and get them to print it for us, or we just use the printers there. And for some reason, maybe from the PDF form over to there or something, they got offset by a very small margin and actually made our first attempt at these gears, they didn't actually fit fully into the gears. So both pieces were actually a bit too big. So what we did, we had to redo the top piece, because that was the problem. All these were fine because it didn't really make a difference, but we just redid the top piece and just recut out the top piece, and that basically fixed most of our problems. They were pretty close. We did have to make the gear a bit smaller. As you can see, we put some cardboard right here, which basically made it so that it fit perfect, or almost perfectly. So that is how we created this with all these pieces, and yeah. So after all that, we decided to make around 20 links and about 4 gears, which was about enough to make this. This is what we need. We need 20 links and 4 gears, or two double thick 2 gears to make this. And this is basically a test of whether this actually works. Now you'll notice that as I move it, this gets caught here. So it's not very smooth. We tried some different ideas for some of them just to see whether it would help, but it didn't really help that much. We tried, and this helped a little bit, we tried just making these smaller, which did work, but it also means that these are kind of sloppy. As you can see, it's not as tight as it was before. As well as we would have to redo the jigs again, and we realized that it would actually be easier if we just created a whole new like gear and link design, which would mean that we'd have to recreate these, but it would hopefully work better. Now, basically what the idea of the gear and link, the new gear and link, is that when they rotate, it's more of a sitting on top. I'll put a image up. More of a sitting on top, like instead of getting slotted into holes, as you can see. And basically, also as we redesign our jigs, we're going to try to implement different kind of production methods, like including possibly extending these out so that you could slide a 2x4 through and like have clamps, so you don't have to cut them into pieces every time. You just drill holes on a 2x4 and then just move it, and then do it and move it, and have it kind of more of a production. So in conclusion, we decided that we had to make a new design for our gear and jig. Although the gear and link jig idea will still work, the initial idea that we had isn't going to work. So we would have included this, but we didn't have time, so we're probably going to include that later. So in conclusion, we realized that we had to redesign our gear and link idea just to a new format, which will take a little bit of work. Although we didn't have enough time to include it in this artifact, we will probably I'll include it in a later artifact. But I feel like these things that we have done over the past few months have kind of completed the goals that we have set about making it working. Although it's not perfect, it still kind of works and shows us that this doesn't work, and we have to create a new one. So basically, that's what we're going to be working on. We'll be working on a gear and link jig setup. The the other goal that we had was to create repeatable links and gears, which is what we originally had set out, so we definitely can do that. All of them are really very close, and we still have some tweaking to do. I feel like next time when we create them all over again, it'll be much cleaner and smoother because we'll be knowing what we're doing. In the process of designing the gear and link, we had lots of opportunities to use mathematical thinking to, like, first off we had to use math in like offset, so we had to offset lines to get the basically the distance between where we wanted the router to cut and where we wanted basically where edge of the router base to the edge of the bit, and we had to take that and offset it in the program for what we wanted the riding distance and where we wanted the router to actually cut. We also had to use angles and offsets to make the 8 cogs of the gear and stuff like that. Through the whole process of making this tread wall, me and my dad have had lots of conversations about ideas and possible flaws and weaknesses to what we are doing, like whenever we're drilling a hole and stuff like that. We just have to think about it. Is this right or not? And we do that for most things in the project, but especially when we were brainstorming at the beginning, we had to discuss back and forth ideas, whether they would work or not, and narrow them down to specific ideas, and that ended up being the gear and chain link idea, which ended up not working perfectly, so we had to redesign it anyway, which we talked about that as well, which worked out to be a good idea. So as we discussed our different ideas and whether we were going to do something or not, it came clear to me that me and my dad have definitely different viewpoints and like thoughts about each matter. One reason why I think that is so is because we are different ages. We're really, really different ages, so that definitely makes a difference. Another thing is that me and my dad, I think, approach a situation differently because we are from different generations, which can make a big difference. As we worked through prototypes, so our first prototype was off, our second prototype was good, just the design was wrong. We had to evaluate and just kind of go through prototypes, working through different stages of prototypes to work through trial and error. So if something didn't work, we just have to go on to the next one. And also, we'll have, since we're rebuilding with a new design, we'll have the chance to add in features like production, which will maybe allow us to take a longer piece and just run it through the jig and get like 7 or 8 pieces at once instead of having to cut it up. You know what I mean? Like that would save a lot of time and effort. Building a fort on a beach in Tofino, and what we did, me and my dad, we actually pinned all of the planks to it, so we drilled longer holes, and we spent about a good 8+ hours on that. So that was a really long job, but it kind of like was a different woodworking kind of skill that I got to use, even though it was primitive. But I could see how it could be, especially for this project, not for me, but for other people. Birds. Other people, it could be like, you know, challenging and not motivational. But fortunately, I'm motivated to do this because I'm really, would be really excited to see the end product, and I think that'll help in the future with this project. Also, I feel like all the woodworking skills and manufacturing skills that I've learned from this, as well as engineering and troubleshooting and trial and error, will help me out later in life. Like if I ever get a programming job, I might need to use that like in the program. If my program doesn't work, I might have to troubleshoot it, or if I'm making something to do with like physics or something like that. Also, for like if I get an engineering job or something like that. I think that all the skills that I've learned in this project will help me later in life. All the skills I've learned just will be super useful later. So throughout all of this, first of all, I had to basically use a lot of woodworking tools to saw, cut things out. I also had to use a knife to cut paper out for templates. I also had to use several programs, including Premiere Pro, which I used to edit this video, and previous videos. I also used AutoCAD to draw up the designs for the actual gears and links, and as well as Adobe Acrobat, which I use to make PDFs, which isn't much of a program, but I still used it. And overall, it's been a pretty creative project. I'm also appreciating my dad's skill with the saw and the knife just for accuracy, and I've been improving that as well as I'm going, and that will be, I really enjoy the amount of work that I've been able to increase that skill. So to wrap up this video, I just wanted to say that I've really enjoyed this whole project. It's been really fun, and we've had lots of awesome stuff going on. Like when we first made the gear jig, when it worked really well because it was our second jig that we had made. It only took us a few hours to make, and we just got it banged done. It was perfect. It wasn't perfect, but it was really good. And I also enjoyed working with my dad, which was really fun to do, although it took a long time because he was only here half the time, so we probably would have gotten more done by now. And I'm really enjoying to work over it over the summer and more in the future. And I'll be interested to see what's going to come out of, whether we actually will be able to create a tread wall in the future.